I wanted to introduce to you the first of our three speakers this evening, and it's a pleasure to introduce the guy who's known on Fox News as the Shredder. Now, if you don't know how Tim got his reputation as the Shredder, he was sitting in his assembly office over here in the Capitol, and somebody on his staff plunked down the state budget. And it was as tall as the Diet Coke that he was drinking with his lunch. And Tim took one look at it, and you know over there they have a video camera that if you call up and you're a state representative, you can ask the video camera to come down and they do a film of whatever you like. He said, "Meet me at the shredding machine." And he proceeded to shred the state budget. And it went viral. It went viral, and I think that's why he is as popular as he is all over his district. This is the man who replaced something of an icon in our state assembly. If you remember back to the era of Willie Brown. Let's hear it for Willie Brown. Thank you very much. Willie Brown had a fiefdom up here. And it was because of the efforts of Dick Mountjoy, who ran and was elected to both the state assembly and the state senate at the same time. He forsook his state senate office so that he could vote against Willie Brown and vote for term limits. And we will never have another Willie Brown in California again because of Dick Mountjoy, a real hero. When Dick retired, this young man ran for his seat. He has the blessing of Dick and his whole family, and he is doing a wonderful job in our state assembly. He's one of the good guys over there. I don't know how he keeps his sense, meeting up with the likes of Governor Brown. And isn't it something how Willie Brown was the mayor of San Francisco and Jerry Brown was the mayor of Oakland? I mean, the Bay Bridge only prevented us from having a double brownout. Without any further ado, the congressman from the assemblyman from the 59th Assembly, I hope someday he's a congressman. Let's hear a big round of applause for Minuteman, Tim Donnelly.
Boy, he's a hard guy to follow, huh? What a great day to be an American, isn't it? Okay. All right, I'm going to do that again. What a great day to be an American. Thank you. Thank you. You know, it is my pleasure and my privilege to represent the people of the 59th District, which is probably one of the most gerrymandered districts in the state of California. It's a district that they said, it starts in La Crescenta, which is almost in Los Angeles, extends all the way up the foothills along the 210 freeway, takes in cities like Glendora, Claremont, which is basically a communist city, and then goes up over the foothills, includes Lake Arrowhead. I think we have some people from Lake Arrowhead here, Fletch and Cheryl. And then it goes into the entire high desert, the Victor Valley, Apple Valley, Hesperia, and some other cities. But you know, in the newspaper they said, you can't win this district walking door to door. And you have to raise at least 50 grand. Now, how many candidates do we have here today? Can you raise your hand if you're a candidate? All right, whatever the newspaper tells you you can't do, that should be your battle plan. Because what we did is we walked it door to door. And we met people. But you know, we did something else. First of all, we started our campaign on our knees 2 years before, praying and asking God what He wanted me to do with my life. And nowhere in there was anything about running for office. Let me tell you, it was it was a day that I will never forget in my entire life when I decided to run, because it certainly was not something that I had intended to do. You know, we found ourselves at wit's end. We found ourselves with no resources, with a business on the verge of failure due to California's policies. I mean, you guys all know. The environmental policies have chased the bulk of the manufacturing out of the state. Now, I spent 20 years in the manufacturing business. I didn't come from city council. I didn't come from some, elected position. I'd never served on a committee in my life. I thought central committees were some communist invention. But God called me to run for this office. And when He does that, you got to look out, because amazing things can happen. And, it's very interesting that we're here and we're trying to educate the public on some issues they don't want to hear about. We're trying to educate the public on issues the media refuses to cover. We're trying to educate the public. We're kind of like Paul Revere in a sense. And yet, there's days that feels hopeless. There's days that we feel like, are we really doing this? Our husband or wife is saying, are you really going to another conference? Are you going to sit there at your table and hand out your literature? Are you going to walk door to door and run for office again? I mean, what about the kids? What about this? What about that? And you start thinking you have no chance. You start thinking, well, one person can't make a difference. And I'm here to tell you today that one voice can make a huge difference. Because 6 years ago, I learned about the illegal immigration problem from my own community. I discovered that we no longer enforced our borders. We didn't enforce any of our laws. And I couldn't understand it. And I began to research it online. But back then, Al Gore hadn't done a very good job inventing the internet. Remember how crummy it was? I keep forgetting to send him that thank you note, but I can't find his house. But they tell me you can see it from space, because he uses so much electricity while trying to lecture us on his carbon footprint, But, back then, it was not common knowledge. And there were a bunch of people that were brought to our mountain to cut down trees. And the Edison and all those guys were paying a lot of money to cut down half our forest because of the bark beetle infestation. But all these crews came from Georgia and Alabama, and they brought illegal aliens with them. And one crew was really cheap, and so instead of putting them up at the local DoubleTree Hotel, they put them in a shipping container in November. And I thought that was wrong. So I figured, you know what? The authorities showed up. 5 government agencies showed up. Not one single person was arrested. Not one single person was arrested. And I began to ask questions. And every time I turned around, I could see illegal immigration was infiltrating every fabric of our lives, every facet of our lives. It touched. Whether you like it or not, it didn't matter what you feel about it, it's there. And our government is pushing it. And it's funny because I see very strong parallels. I'm not going to steal any thunder from the great speakers I know you have lined up behind me about the green agenda, but you see the same exact thing. They've got that thing down to a religion. It's like a religion. They push it every time you turn around. They're talking about the green agenda. And I don't know about you, but I have this little book called the Constitution. It's only that big. It's a very powerful device, kind of like a 50 cal, Okay, I know you thought I was going to say 45. But it says, the state shall not establish a religion. And yet every time I turn around, they are pushing things with a religious fervor, and they have the power of the government to force you to change, or they will confiscate your rights, whether it's your property, whether it is your liberty, whether it is your livelihood, in the name of this green agenda. And I see the exact same thing and have seen it with illegal immigration. Every time I turn around on the assembly floor now, they're pushing some new right for those who are here illegally, some new set of laws so that we're not all equal under the law. There's a whole new set of laws if you happen to come here the wrong way. I'm sorry. I'm an absolute advocate and supporter of legal immigration. My wife's family came here the right way. Her grandfather came here from the Philippines. Most people think she's Hawaiian because she was born in Hawaii. But you try to tell her she's anything but an American, she'll slit your throat faster than you can spell. And she'll step right over you. But, you know, we're not allowed to talk about this, right? That's where we were 6 years ago. We're not allowed to talk about illegal immigration, right? Isn't that kind of where we are with globalism and the green agenda? You're not allowed to talk about it. Tell me, when you start a conversation at a cocktail party, if you're still get invited to those, people think you're nuts, don't they? But then they start seeing it, and they start to see that this agenda has been pushed. And so when I saw it, there was an opportunity to go to the border. A gentleman came on the radio and he said, we're going to do a Boston Tea Party type protest at the border. And I thought, I'm going. I didn't even ask my wife. I just signed up. And a couple weeks later, I said, honey, I'm heading down to the border. But in the meantime, the drug cartels said, we're going to send you guys home in body bags. And it was a very interesting conversation when I said goodbye to my wife, because she's seen me at the gun range. And I'm not that great of a shot. So I did buy an extra 45. Good thing, too. But, you know, when I was saying goodbye to her, she got teary-eyed and upset and almost, you know, sobbing. And I said, honey, you know, God has determined a time for each of us to die. And if that's His will, then that's His will. But I feel this call that I have to go there. And you know, the reason that I felt so strongly is because we were sending troops into harm's way. And yet we left the back door of our country wide open. I had no idea what I would find out when I went there. I had no idea the extent to which the tyranny of illegal immigration, the tyranny of state-sponsored illegal immigration, sponsored at every single level, just like you're starting to see the green agenda be pushed through at every single level. But I remember the day I became an activist. And that was when a lady whose name I've never repeated because I told her I wouldn't, she lives on the border. And here we went down there and President Bush had just called us vigilantes. You know, here our own president called us vigilantes. And I was feeling a little sensitive when I went up to patrol the first property. And we came off patrol and I had my 45 on. And this lady honked at me. And I went, you know, she starts rolling down her window and I thought, oh boy, here goes. This thing was so badly organized. She's going to yell at me. Instead, she said, you know what? She said, I would just want to thank you. She said, I haven't slept in weeks. We have illegals crossing our property. They're carrying drugs. They're trafficking people. I hear women being raped in the canyon below. It sounds like coyotes at night. And you know, she said, I'm going to pull over. And as she pulled over, I looked at the back of her car and it said, and this is when I fell in love with her. She was about 60, about the age of my mom when she passed away. And it said, gun control means using both hands. But, you know, she looked like a hippie. And I thought, hallelujah. This is awesome. That's the fundamental quintessential thing about being an American, is you have a right to believe what you believe and not worry about what everybody else thinks. And that there's a power that is given to us in the First Amendment to go and seek redress of our grievances from our government. You know, that day I made a promise to her. I said, I'm going to tell your story everywhere I go. I got invited to be on Fox News when I went home. So 3 days later, I'm on a national newscast. Never been on television in my life. I've got a T-shirt on. Bad idea. But I did put a sport coat over it. And they said, what do you think about President Bush calling you vigilantes? And I discovered the media loves their little gotcha moments. I said, well, what do you get if you take the E off vigilante? You get vigilant. And isn't that what President Bush asked us to be after 9/11? Well, I want to tell you something, because I was asked to speak on the topic of the costs of illegal immigration. So you probably all brought a pen and paper and you thought you were going to take a bunch of notes and hear about figures and facts and all that. But I think you know. I think deep down in your hearts, you know that the cost goes way beyond the $22 billion it is estimated that is costing the state of California. And I can tell you this for a certainty. When we cut the veterans' transitional funding by 50%, so your sons and your daughters who are serving in harm's way. How many people here have somebody, either a son, daughter, or neighbor, that has served in Iraq or Afghanistan? Raise your hand. Thank you for their service. So we cut funding to their program while we increased funding for illegals to go to college. Starting in 2013, we are going to pay for, at $65 million, that's the starting gate, to pay for Cal Grants for illegals. Now, not just the ones who came here at 2 and 3 years old that we have some empathy for, but anyone who can get here in the next 3 years. Anyone who happens to be here and gets a GED is also eligible. The media tried to hide that fact. I went, and many of you carried the petitions, I went to put a referendum on that. That's a tool that we have in the legislature, or I'm sorry, in the Constitution here in California, to basically get out our gun and shoot a terrible bill. You know, I mean, it's just a way for the citizens to stand up and have a citizen's veto over a legislature that's out of control and has absolutely no authority to force this upon the people, and yet they do it anyway, because they have the power. And when you give them enough power, they will do whatever they want. And you know that whole thing about the declaration that says that they shall govern at the consent of the governed, and that the just powers are derived by the consent of the governed? They, in their minds, have shredded and burned that document a long time ago. They have absolutely, utterly no respect for it. In California, this session, in addition to passing the DREAM Act, in addition to hand over seats in colleges to illegals when it takes 7 years for our kids to get through, they said, hey, if you happen to get stopped at a drunk driving checkpoint, we can't impound your car anymore. As long as you have some relative who can show up with a driver's license, your car will not be impounded. That's AB 353, thanks to my seatmate, Gil Cedillo. Another bill, AB 1236. If you, as a local city council member, and I know we have one here from the city of Dixon, if you as a local city council member say, look, we want to have a ban on PLAs, project labor agreements. We want to ban them because it means basically that you're stuck with the union. The unions come in and they force it, and they hold you hostage with lawsuits, and you're stuck hiring union workers and paying prevailing wage for a project with taxpayer funds. So if you want to protect the taxpayers of your community and say that those funds will only go to those who are legal, lawful citizens, and you will require every contractor to use E-Verify, forget about it. It's now illegal in the state of California to require a contractor to use E-Verify as a means of getting approval to bid on a project and get approval for that. I don't know about you, but when my government goes that far, when my government has pushed against the will of the citizens, and instead of securing the rights, because we read in the Declaration that the purpose, the sole purpose of government is to secure these rights, the inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. When my government is now infringing those rights and doing it to the point that many of you may even think that they succeeded in destroying the Declaration, I am here to tell you that as of October of last year, that document is still in the National Archives because I personally viewed it. But I'm going to tell you, when I viewed it, I had tears streaming down my face because we're on the verge of losing everything that they stood for. We are on the verge of losing this great nation, this great experiment in liberty, this great cause. And you know, illegal immigration is but a symptom. This green agenda is but a symptom. The problem is that we have tolerated tyranny. We have tolerated those who would steal and confiscate our wealth and use it to enrich themselves and guarantee their own political futures. And it was the founders who gave us the solution. It's real simple, folks. They said when a government becomes destructive of these ends, you must alter or abolish it. And Warren told you about how I took my shredder. Well, he didn't tell you I ripped Carb's budget out first, and I crammed it down that shredder. And I want to tell you right now that we need another Boston Tea Party, and I have an idea. I think we ought to get every trucker in the state of California that has any guts, and most truckers do, to surround that Capitol, especially the Carb building, and choke off all activity until they shut down that board and begin to give the power back to the people. And you know, they may try to throw me in jail, they may try to throw some other people in jail, but there's a reason that we are given these seats, and we're given them for a period of time. And I think that we're given this opportunity once in a lifetime. I have a couple months left, and let me tell you, I've got a competitor, an opponent who's running against me who's being funded by the special interests. And I want to tell you something. I am not ashamed to ask for your help. Not just when I go to the Capitol and want to shut that place down, but I do need your help because I believe we need people like myself and others who will not care about politics. We don't need politicians in there. We need patriots. On your table, and if you don't have one and you want one, there's a bumper sticker. Yes, I realize you're out of my district, but you know what? I represent you, and I vote for you every single day. And if you can support me financially, I would appreciate it. It would mean a lot. If you can't, just use this like you do at church. Make it a communication card. I want to be in communication with you. I want your email. I want your phone number. I want to be able to send you information so you can be involved in this fight, because we have an opportunity in the state of California to take this place back for the people. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking your Friday night and caring about liberty. Thank you for following in the footsteps of Phyllis. Yes. Where's Orlean? thank you for following in the footsteps of Phyllis, who I used to read when I was at the border. And I want to tell you, she is a personal hero of mine. I would love to meet her someday. But I want to tell you, we need 1,000 Phyllises. We need to rise up, and we need to train the next generation, and we need to get them to start voting the right way and understand that this is not about Republican and Democrat. This is about the people versus the politicians, and this is about taking back our country, and you can count on me to be leading that fight. Thank you, and Godspeed.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. Every year, Phyllis Schlafly honors many great patriots, as we try to do here in California as well. And we would like to honor Tim Donnelly as the Legislator of the Year, presented by Eagle Forum of California 2012.
Thank you so much.
And I also have a gift of my 700-page book for him.
This is homework.
And if you need to, well, Rosa Curry takes it with her jogging. She thinks it protects her.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate all you've done for us. You're welcome.